This is definitely my favourite kind of episode. Maybe it's yours too. We stayed up last year. We did more than stayed up. We achieved a top half finish in the Premier League. Our reward for that, a transfer bounty. £74 million in transfer budget. To be fair, not all that much wage budget. We're going to have to do some rejigging. But we're back for a transfer special today. And all I'm saying is by the end of the summer, this team is hopefully going to look a little bit different. Yes, folks, how is it going? And a warm welcome back. It's Park to Prem. It's Wednesday. I hope you're having a lovely day. And first and foremost, it's episode number 56. I don't know how we've got to that many episodes already, but here we are. Now, of course, last episode, we concluded season number 7, and we ended things on a pretty good note. I know we lost 2 of the 3 games, but all in all, 2 narrow defeats, a nice win against Aston Villa, got us a 9th place finish, which was definitely beyond my expectations going into this year. In terms of our signing of the year, somewhat amusingly, Philip Rolk's been given it. We signed him for £5 million. Of course, the centre-back, you can see here, averaging above a 7.0 rating, joined us for £5 million, having been on loan at us the previous year. He's actually been a really vital part of the defence. Another man that's been essential to this season's success in Will Lancashire is, our top goal scorer. He got 14 goals, which wasn't quite Sheldon's 15 goals last year, of course. Few more strikers in the team, playing with 3 attackers as well, so the goals have been spread out more. But the 26-year-old definitely, I think, warranted his price tag. I know some people are maybe expecting more goals for 20 million. I think when we look at his profile, his ability, he did exactly what we needed him to do. And in terms of what we did, well, you can see here, a 9th place finish, more defeats than wins is a little bit of a downer, but we didn't draw nearly as many games as other teams around us. In fact, looking at things here, it's kind of absurd how many teams got to double figures for draws this year. From a financial point of view, we're making some really good money, of course. A little bit concerningly here, our reputation has not moved. Of course, it is still May for this point of the episode. I'm hoping as we tick over into the new season in mid-June, that might go up to 3.5 stars. Maybe. Rashid Mohammed was our Young Player of the Year and Fans Player of the Year. He was absolutely superb, the 22-year-old. Really, really consistent player for us when he was fit. Improved a ton as well. And, well, he's got room to get better and better, at least according to our staff. He could be a good Premier League player. Apparently now he's only decent. If you wanted an update on the overall best 11, here it is. Ajaria leading the way with league appearances. 242 games for this man. He is 22 years old and he is still getting better. It has to be said, his improvements this year have been really, really noticeable. A little bit of a shame that we've discovered he hates important matches. If you didn't know, you don't actually get told if a player likes or dislikes important matches till they turn 22, but on their 22nd birthday, it just shows all of a sudden. So that's one of those weird quirks of how Football Manager works. Bit of a shame he hates important matches, but he has been a very consistent member of the team this year. And in terms of the club vision for the coming year, despite having a very good season, attempt to avoid relegation is still the aim the board are setting. That does fill me with dread that our reputation is not going to be getting much better this year. End of season meeting done. Everyone is happy. They stood up and clapped. Now they can go away for a break and I can figure out what we're going to do with this team. Such as where we're going to go on a pre-season tour. You know what? USA sounds good. And apparently Southampton are going to step up their interest in Marcus Sheldon. Of course, he signed a new deal midway through this year on £50,000 a week. He will not be sold this year, I'm afraid to say, for Southampton fans. Now, currently, as I said, it's the end of May. I'm going to get into June a little bit, fiddle around with the squad a little bit, work out what my plan is for the coming year. Once I have a better idea, I'll be back. So I've not even gone forward a week. It's the 2nd of June, and I'm starting to think about the squad. Of course, we already have one signing confirmed for the summer in Alfie Dorrington. We agreed to sign him back in March. He was actually relegated with West Ham, despite the fact they rarely played him in any games. And to be honest, I don't really understand why West Ham didn't play him. I mean, in terms of the options they did give game time to, Alvarez here started 34 games. I'm not being funny. How has he played more than Dorrington? The West Ham manager has clearly played favourites. I don't blame Alfie for wanting to leave. Just as a reminder, that fee we've paid for him is £30 million, but that has already been taken out the budget. So we kind of reinvested, you might remember, the Aaron Ramsey sale money. It was brought to my attention a video or two ago. I never actually gave an official send-off to Haig Dolk. He did go to China in the end. I left an episode with me selling him and never really acknowledged the fact he did indeed go to China. Speaking of which, Shanghai Port, just to look at their transfer spend, they spent £111 million on players. I feel like I should have got more for my players in retrospect. Anyway, casting our eyes forward to next season, I have already blocked out what will be the best 11 as things stand. Of course, Alfie Dorrington will play in the heart of our defence with Rolk and Arian B alongside. I do feel like in the case of Arian B and Rolk, then maybe if the right options are out there, is the opportunity to improve on them. They're two very, very well-rounded centre-backs in their own right. I do feel like Dorrington is just a little more elite when it comes to his physicality. That extra little bit of jumping reach, that extra little bit of pace, I do feel like goes a long way at this elite level. Dorrington is also very, very good with the ball at his feet, which of course suits our system well. You can't really say the same for players like Rolk, who's good, but if we just compare him with Dorrington, you can see here, he is just not quite on the same level across the board. I suppose when you look at the team and realise we conceded the 6th most goals this year, that's a further indicator that the defence really should be a priority this year. From a goal-scoring point of view, we were running away as one of the top goal scorers in the league alongside Man City. We definitely cooled off in the second half of the season, and in spite of the fact he got Fans Player of the Year and PFA Young Player of the Year, of this front three of Sheldon, Lancashire and Mohamed, I do feel like Mo is the man who might find himself on the bench. People probably thought I was going to say Mo has to go. No, he doesn't need to go anywhere. I do just look at him and think, maybe he'd be better as a sub option on off the bench. I compare him against Lancashire here, and I feel like Lancashire does have maybe just the slight edge. It's not a great deal between them. And I think of our attackers, it's safe to say Sheldon is the best of our attackers, with the caveat of he hates important matches. Yes, we discovered that when he turned 22 a couple of months ago. And on top of that, he did have a hell of a lot of injuries this year. I feel like it'd be easy to be mistaken in thinking that me talking about moving Rashid Mohammed out the starting 11 means he won't be playing anymore. Far from it. When we have a front three like this, usually one of them at least is going to have a bad game. Having someone like Rashid of that quality to bring on, I think could be a really useful weapon to have. I suppose the goalkeeper area is the other spot where you might point and go, do you need to have a better player than that? Well, I'm kind of wondering that myself. Caleb Anson, by the way, has some interest in him from Swansea, who have just been promoted to the Premier League. Anson's value is 21 to 25 million. And I know when you look at his mentals, they are a little lacking. But in terms of his technicals as a goalkeeper, they really are outstanding. And I know he doesn't have the best star rating, but because of how average rating feeds into the kind of current ability, and also the fact I feel like goalkeeping star ratings are always just a little bit here, there, and everywhere anyway, I'm kind of willing to look beyond that, simply based on how he's done this year. 7.02 rating, 7 clean sheets in 32. Actually averaged for the season, especially towards the tail end, a really good rating. Came up big as we turned things around with some really big results. Even the game against Man City that we lost, he still managed to get a 7.9 rating in. In the midfield, I do have a few question marks about Flood and Gallagher. With Flood, the fundamental issue is he's a great player. He wants a new contract and his contract's up in 2 years. But if I just discuss his wage demands, he wants between £78,000 and £94,000 a week. As a refresher, our current highest earner, Sheldon, is on £50,000. I mean, I can tell him here to lower his wage demands. His agent doesn't want to lower them, and I'm a bit scared to now enter negotiations and upset him. Worth noting, there is interest in Flood from Juventus. Gallagher has actually shown some weird decline lately, just Football Manager things, right? But the 21-year-old was an ever-present part of our defence. There is part of me that wonders, if I was to lose Flood and keep Gallagher, I could move Gallagher into that regista role, the more creative player, and then look to maybe get someone in at Segundo Volante to replace him. I mean, with Flood's value of 80 million and him running down his contract, it might not be the worst idea. The one thing making me want to keep Flood around is the fact he is one of 4 players listed as homegrown at club currently in the team. Yeah, homegrown at club is going to be useful, especially as I do feel like we could be on the cusp of European football next year with the right improvements. Part of me feels like in an ideal world, I don't replace any of the centre mids. Of course, in terms of younger centre mids, there's 2 players who I'm desperate to give game time to for the coming year. The first is Corby Hatswell. We signed him for £17 million in January from Plymouth. A really great player who's already showing some really promising signs of development. The other player who I want to give more game time to is Joe McHugh. This guy, we signed for £500,000 at the start of last year from Bristol Rovers, and he was one of these punty signings of which we've made a few of them. He is the one that I feel like might be us hitting the jackpot. I look at him at 18 years old. He's improved a lot. He's learnt centre defensive mid from scratch this year, and despite that, he has continued to improve. In the last 24 months, this is his development. I kind of am a bit scared to add too much depth at centre defensive mid because I want to give both those youngsters game time alongside Flood and Gallagher. In terms of the players I've currently not got in my starting 11 and bench, there's a few players here that I can maybe look to move on. Christopher Alozzi, we picked up as a refresher for £7.5 million from Swansea. Brought him in to be a depth striking option. Didn't really use him as much this year just gone. His valuation is 14 to 17 million. To be honest, if we got a bid north of 10 million, I feel like I'd struggle to say no. I talked about Mick Hugh being one of those punts that worked out. This one maybe went the other way. Someone like Amari Hutchinson as well, I'm not averse to selling if the right offer comes in. I know that might sound blasphemous, but given the fact we signed him for £3.3 million, and when you look at his performances, he's not really shone this year, it might well be worth cashing in on him sooner rather than later. His valuation currently is 8.2 to 8.8 million. And in terms of other players in the team that I think could be on the chopping block, Matthew Miller, kind of on the list, maybe. You can see here he's wanted by Hibs on loan. Obviously, I've spent stupid money on this guy, £17 million spent. I still do firmly believe he could have some potential to fulfill. I feel like this year I tried to force him into the first team and it didn't really work for him. A loan spell maybe down to the Championship could be the order of the day, just to try and reinstate some confidence. If he does go, we have got a queue of players who can play right wing back to come in his place. All I'm saying is that between Ajaria and McConnell, we've got two very solid options. Definitely better than Matthew Miller. He is never going to develop if I continue to treat him as the third choice. You may have noticed on the bench as well, a couple of players who were out on loan last year that I'm thinking maybe I try and get into the team more and more. Alongside Hatswell and McHugh, these two players are perhaps the best youngsters in the team. First is Niall Townsend, 21 years old, centre attacking mid. Obviously, big issue here is I currently don't play with a centre attacking mid unless I go to the more defensive containy formation, which actually I have still been using on the regular. I think as the centre attacking mid in that formation specifically, Niall here could be a really good fit. He has the added bonus of he's homegrown at club, has developed quite nicely on his loan at Preston despite not having the most impressive of average ratings, and part of me feels like for him, maybe just a trial by fire is the play. There's half of me that thinks, maybe I should just go and sign a load of players and really try and push for European football from the off. There is another part of me that thinks, we have some really good young players that I want to see develop. Give them chances at the backup, watch them grow. That might be a longer term, better strategy. Another player who falls into that is Bernard Brennan. Of course, this year we've had a few different striking options in the team. Nicky Meredith has been in on loan, and whilst there is maybe the option to sign Nicky Meredith permanently if I wanted to, I don't know how much Everton would ask for versus this valuation. Bernard Brennan here, I actually really like, and I don't think is a million miles away. He's a little bit younger, the man who's been out on loan versus Nicky Meredith, but when you look at the two head-to-head, they're the same mould of player. Bernard is our own player, and fundamentally, my staff think he's got great potential. I loaned him to a championship team this year in Coventry. He started 16 games for them. They actually got promoted in spite of the fact he didn't really return from a goal-scoring point of view. I don't know, I feel like maybe him being at the club this year might be a better way to try and develop him. Anyway, saying all of that, the transfer window doesn't actually open for a few more days, so despite the fact I would maybe want to move on some players, I'm probably going to have to wait a week or so for that to start to happen. I'm going to offer out some players, eye up some transfer targets, although if I'm being honest, I do feel like until we hit that season tick-over date, the options that might be out there aren't all that impressive. You can see here, I've got so many players scouted, sorted by transfer value. If I sort them by ability, there's no super obvious first-team signings that I feel like I absolutely have to jump on immediately. I have been asked if I want to follow up in my interest in a contract for Kyle Flood. I mean, truthfully, I probably should just lock this guy down. My concern is that if I start paying him too much, other players are going to start asking for more money. £50,000 as Sheldon stung when I offered him it, but honestly, Flood is just one of our best players. And he's homegrown at club. I mean, if I'm going to renew his contract, I'm going to have to rejig some of this transfer budget that I was kind of eyeing up and move it into the wage budget, but it's probably going to be worth it. He wants to be a star player. That is fine. If I put end of season, just because that allows me to get a little more... Okay, never mind. We'll just do immediately. £80 million release clause, match higher Sterner clause, £80,000 a week. He's really trying to make me unhappy here. He's locked in a 5-year deal as well. He wants to be here for a while unless someone can offer enough money. I mean, my concern is that his valuation is currently 73 to 82 million and he wants an £80 million release clause. Oh, I feel like I just have to give him the money though. I'm going to try lowering this to £75,000. It's like Harvey Elliott all over again. He's nudged it up to 95k. I'll give him a goal bonus. I'll give him an assist bonus. He can have an international cap bonus, even though, of course, he plays for the Republic of Ireland national team. If we qualify for the Europa League, mate, I'll give you 975k. I've been very generous here. He is not repaying me. The reason I feel like Carl here is just worth paying this money to is the fact he's homegrown at club. Like, that is such a fundamentally key thing for us for the next few years. And I suppose it also means with 2 years left on his deal, I'm not going to lose him for nothing either. I'll up the unused sub fee because he's always going to be a used sub. He really wants 82. Look, I'll do 80. I'm being very, very reasonable here. If you score goals, you can have more money as well. He's accepted that deal. That physically hurts me to give him, but he's got me by the gonads. Homegrown at club, one of our best players on paper, super solid player for us on his day. Oh, I just have to pay him it, don't I? Gallagher was really good for us in the first half of the year. Part of me does wonder, is there an alternative option to him at Segundo Volante out there? Like, of all the positions, Gallagher is probably one of the more replaceable players, dare I say, in the team. I know people are going to look at Wallace and Ajaria and think, Jack, why are they not on the chopping block? Well, one, homegrown at club. Two, both young players that my scouts think have loads of potential. I say my scouts. My staff think have loads of potential still. I feel like these are two players that I want to keep in the team. Call me sentimental. Call me whatever you want. I like them both, okay? And given the fact we have still got 16+ million pounds, yeah, there probably is room to improve the team at the back, isn't there? Flood commits his future to the club, albeit there's a release clause. But to be fair, if I was to get 80 million pounds for him, it would be hard to say no, despite how good he is. He is so well-rounded at centre mid. Part of me wishes he was maybe a bit better defensively or a bit better offensively. But for a player we signed for free, he is definitely one of the best spies we've made during this save game. Okay, it is now the 11th of June in game. The transfer window is open, and that means that Alfie Dorrington is about to walk through the front doors. I'm hoping this man is going to be my defensive option for the foreseeable future. Great potential. England international as well, which is always promising to see. Like I said when we signed him, I know he only has one yellow attribute above 15 in his jumping reach, but when you look across the board, he's got loads of 14s and 15s in some really important areas. I like the look of this guy a lot. I hate to say it, the Daniel Hoey era might be over. I mean, it is over. He's wanted by some players as well, Hoey. If someone wants to buy him for 12 million, they can probably have him now. Dorrington, already valued at 60 to 65 million pounds. You might have spotted as well here, he's joined us for £40,000 a week. That is a bargain. I have noticed as well here, we've got some early transfer offers. Ryan Smith is actually a player who in the last couple of years has gone absolutely crazy with his development. The 20-year-old has been in our reserve team, still not played for our first team, was looking to loan him out. I'm going to hope that these offers made for him are loan offers. Look how much he has improved. That is actually absurd. The offers we've had, mostly League One teams, it has to be said, but they want to make him an important player. That is definitely the kind of loan move we were looking for. Also had some loan offers for Ollie Johnson. Remember Ollie Johnson? I feel like I've not uttered his name in a whole year. He's been on loan at Hearts for the last year. He's actually had a pretty good loan spell by all accounts, but there's not really a spot for him in the first team. So I do want to sell him. The offers we've had, sadly, all loan offers. Yeah, I need to turn these down. Now that the transfer window's open, so I am going to offer out a few players like Alozzi. Just some of these players that I think aren't going to be first team regulars. I feel like it's worth just exploring. Is there any interest? Andy White has just shown up in my recommendations. I'd love to sign Andy White, but that value is steep. Apparently Tottenham are interested, but need to generate the financial funds to sign him. It's actually insane how good Andy White is. I look at him now and I think I probably shouldn't have sold him. I mean, we wouldn't be where we are now if I hadn't sold him because of the money he generated us at a time where we needed money desperately back in there, well, League Two. Oh, but look how good he is. Does he want to join me? He's got some doubts, but he would discuss it. Well, that's good. At 79 to 95 million is a little out of our budget, innit? He's got a relegation release clause with Leicester. I was desperately hoping Leicester were going to get relegated. They finished up in 12th this year, largely because of his goals. By the way, I got to the bottom of a loan. Remember when we had a weird mortgage loan that we had to start paying off? It was for the youth facilities. Yeah, we've taken out a loan of 30 million to improve our club's youth facilities. On top of that, we have been improving the training facilities lately. If I just go to board requests, You can see here, improving the training facility set to be completed in 4 weeks. I think Football Manager's bugged here. It's telling me that the youth facility improvement was done the same day it was started. I mean, it's been done today. So that's the main thing. It takes them to 4.5 stars. Can we get an ooh in the comments? Just write ooh. Just loads of letter O's. Let's know you watched this part of the video. All I'm saying is there's some weird individuals who skip through it. Not going to judge them. They probably don't have time to listen to me waffle about everything. They do miss out. Caleb Anson has had an offer made by Swansea. I have offered out some players. Caleb Anson was not one of those players. He is our goalkeeper. I don't want to lose Caleb Anson. I think a goalkeeper with really good important matches is key. I think jumping reach and aerial reach I value exceptionally highly on a player. His one-on-ones are good. His reflexes are good. I feel like he's our number one for at least a little while yet. And a bid involving loads of instalments isn't going to change my mind. I offered out Miller. Everyone has said no to Miller. I don't know why they've declined it. I only asked for them to play him at right wing back. I guess maybe that was the issue. Yeah, I had the preferred position set to right wing back. Maybe if I just put it set to right back instead, that'll work. Al Faisahi have made an offer. I've definitely not said that correct. They made an offer for Jimmy J Morgan. The Saudis have arrived. They've offered 10.5 million for Jimmy J. I signed him last year for 6 million. He got 1 goal in 23 games. I might take that. Is that controversial? I'm going to accept it now. I need to see what striking options I can bring in, but yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, in many ways, I'm wondering now, do I now go and sign Nicky Meredith for 24 million? He's got a release clause of 42 million pounds, which was in the loan offer that we made with Everton, that we could sign him for that. If I lower it, they've locked in 42 million. I like Nicky Meredith. I don't think he's 42 million pounds good, I'm afraid to say. I'm wondering if them locking in that amount is because that was in the loan offer. Maybe when the loan's over, I can get him for cheaper nearer this valuation. Because I do like him. He has popped up with some important goals for us. But 42 million is a lot. Have had some offers, by the way, for Miller. Bolton and Oxford have decided they would like him on loan for the year. Bolton will be playing in the Championship next year. Did Oxford avoid the drop? I just want to see the league table. Please, Football Manager. Where are Oxford? They stayed up too. I mean, either of those would be quite good. Gonna accept both these offers. Hearts only wanted to play him as a squad player. Do not like that. Also, they want to play him as a wing-back, which is what I need to play him as. I have just sold Dennis Acton to Millwall's under-21s. Last summer, I took it upon myself to mention every youth player I sold. In instances like this, where you don't even know the player exists, I'll just let you know, we made some money. I don't need to elaborate. One man who has been on my radar since West Ham were relegated is Brian Henderson. He's another pretty solid centre-back. He's either-footed, nearly. Fairly strong left foot. He'd be a decent little option, I feel like. He's 21, fair amount of potential, not really been given much of an opportunity to develop at West Ham. I do quite like the look of him. He probably would be competing with Rolk in that kind of right centre-back position. In terms of the head-to-head comparison, you're kind of splitting hairs, but I do feel like when you play 3 at the back, you obviously have a pool of centre-backs to pick from. Brian Henderson being either-footed means he could come in for MB or Rolk based on form, or neither if he's not improving that much. It's 35 million. It's not cheap. It'd be another Irish player to add to our ranks, and I mean, he's young. He is very, very young. He's about to turn 22, but I feel like if I could negotiate a deal for him, it'd be silly to miss out on him, really. I'm going to try and use some instalments. Of course, when we first got to the Premier League, we signed a lot of players on 3 years' worth of instalments. We're now 2 years through that now, so I feel like I can start to bring instalments back into the negotiations maybe a little bit. I'll offer 22.5 million up front. In instalments, 15 million spread out over 3 years. They've negotiated back. They've asked for a bit more than I wanted them to. I'll make them an offer of 30 million up front, 7.5 in instalments. I feel like there is a bid to be had here, but it is going to cost me nearer 45 million. Okay, hard negotiating there. I've negotiated 45 million for Brian Henderson, and I'm really tempted by that. We have struggled to find centre-backs this year, and I know there's going to be the argument made of, why would you not sign Meredith for the same amount from Everton? Well, obviously, I'm hoping that I can maybe get Nicky here a little bit cheaper once his loan concludes. Also, we've not had issues finding strikers in this save game. We've definitely had issues when it comes to the centre-back area. You look at Rolk and Arian B, they are very, very comparable to one another. By comparison, Brian Henderson here, I think it's just a slightly higher level version of what we've already got. I know the polygon doesn't reflect that, but in terms of the attributes he has, I do like some of them. And I just look at the fact he's 21. He is one for the future. Saying all of that, he is going to want a long-term deal with a release clause. We need to have a chat about that. Okay, I've now entered the talk. He wants £60,000. He wants this minimum release clause to teams in the Champions League. I'm going to remove and exclude that immediately. Obviously, we've just negotiated one new deal. I'd love to get him down to 50k. I don't really want to have too many players in that Flood ballpark. I have a sneaking suspicion because I signed Flood to that new contract. Now Brian Henderson wants to join us. He's now looking at Flood's contract as a reference point. That's why his demands, as we've gone into the talks, were higher than when I previously chatted to his agent a few weeks ago. Okay, I made his contract quite bonus heavy. It also included a relegation release clause of 10 million. He has accepted a £45,000 a week deal. I feel like that's quite favourable for us, in all honesty. Maybe I'm kidding myself a little. I look at that potential, and I just really, really like the look of him. Was not expecting to see this deal concluded so early. Jimmy J. Morgan, deal confirmed, if I want to confirm it, for 10.25 million. I'm going to hit delay on it just for a week. That should afford me enough time just to see what other striking options are out there. I mean, in terms of our current attacking options, obviously, Jimmy J. Morgan going isn't going to see us weaker significantly. I was already looking to bring in a new striker anyway to play alongside Lancashire and Sheldon. I think this is fine. I was just having a little look at the transfer listed striking options. Joe Gelhardt is transfer listed by Huddersfield by request. Of course, we only sold him to them for 8 million last year. To be fair, he got 14 goals from him in the Championship. Apparently that wasn't enough to keep him happy. There's not a huge queue of strikers available transfer listed. I thought I'd look at players with contracts expiring in a month. Fabio Carvalho of Norwich's contract's actually up very, very shortly. He was kind of on my radar at one point as a possible signing on a permanent basis. In terms of the wage demands he has, not too crazy. What I will say is, even though he can play as a striker, he's more of an attacking midfielder option. And he's not all that good, is he? When you compare him versus Jimmy J. Morgan, Jimmy J does have a slight edge. I've looked through players with contract status expiring just in all positions. I'll be honest, the more I'm looking at things, the more I think we need the new season to arrive. Brian Henderson can be confirmed as a transfer. I think I have to do this one. It's not a small sum of money. It is a very big outlay, arguably a bit of a gamble. But quality centre-backs this good, 21 years old, who are English, they're just not going to come around all that often, or rather, I should say, partially English in the case of Brian. I do feel like now between Henderson and Dorrington, we've actually made a really meaningful upgrade at the back. Probably a season later than I wanted to do it. These are the kind of players we were looking for last year, but nevertheless, I feel like we're off to a good start this window. Ryan Smith has completed a loan move to Lincoln. I think it's going to be good for him to get regular football at League One level. Unsure if he's ever really going to get into our team, but he's 20 years old. We have just locked him into a new long-term deal that will kick in at the end of the current season. And yeah, I think he's a player we could flip him on for some money down the line if he continues to develop. Have been offering out a handful of first-team players that I'm not sure are even going to make the bench this year. None of them are attracting interest. I do feel like Hoey is now quite far down the pecking order. I mean, if he's happy to be a squad player, I'll happily keep him around. I'm just not sure I'm going to be able to convince him that this is his future. Or maybe I am. You know what? Maybe I'm. Hoey, you don't have to go anywhere. I do really like the look of Henderson at a right centre-back. It's that 15 passing and 13 vision, I think, in that wider ball-playing defender role that could work really, really nicely for us. And, of course, having Dorrington through the middle, who's no slouch with the ball at his feet as well, is looking really promising. I like the look of the team. I still want a striker. I still want a defensive mid. But this has been a productive transfer window so far. One player who I had been keeping a little eye on, although I knew I wasn't going to be able to get him, was Chris Barrett. His contract was expiring at Manchester City at the end of the year. Never showed any interest in wanting to join us. He's just signed for Arsenal on a free. He would have been a crazy player to pick up, but it was never going to happen. Still being asked about this Jimmy J. Morgan sale. Part of me feels like I shouldn't sell him. Part of me's looking at it thinking he got 1 goal in 23 games last year. He started 9 games for us as well. He just wasn't good enough. 10 million is profit. For a season as bad as that, I just can't say no to it. I'm going to have to accept the deal. Elsewhere, Matthew Miller going to go on loan as a wing-back to Oxford. I'm hoping that's going to be a really good loan spell for him. I think he needs it. Still a big price tag looming over his head, but I definitely don't think he's like a waste yet. He's still got time to develop. He's 22. He's only just turned 22 as well. He's still a spring chicken. We should be approaching very soon the season tick-over day. We've got a small reputation boost. That is damaging my ego a little. I'm desperately hoping that things have improved for us here. We've had the season tick over date. Our opening game of the year is against a newly promoted Swansea. Season preview. We're not bottom. We're not even second from bottom. We're ahead of Swansea and Coventry, who have been promoted alongside Southampton. I'm going to look at that as a small win. In fact, on our club profile screen, it says our media prediction is 15th. Maybe people are starting to believe in us. Our reputation has not improved beyond 3 stars, mind you. What does that mean in realistic terms? It means, well, we have a better reputation than most championship teams now, the exceptions being the 2 teams relegated from the Premier League. But we do still have the worst reputation in the Prem. The board have updated the season expectations. I can select avoid a relegation battle. They no longer think it's just a case of attempting to avoid relegation. In fact, now they're telling me they want us to be established. Oh, that's scary, isn't it? You know what? I could up these. I mean, it does give me a little bit more money, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. I think there's a few unknowns going on into this year. Given the fact I'm fairly determined to continue to make the most of youngsters, give players like McHugh, Hatswell, Brennan, even maybe Niall Townsend, who I think is going to be playing for us this year in the first team, chances more. If that means that we don't take the next step this year, but I can build these guys up, I'm okay with that. I feel like there's a risk that I rush things too quickly and kind of ruin some of these younger players that are waiting in the wings. I know I removed Gallagher from the best 11 earlier. I'm kind of coming around to the idea that he's probably still going to be here this year. With the current finances, I feel like priority numero uno, find one top quality striker if we can. Totally forgot how many players I'd got on pre-contracts where they'd agreed a new deal that'd kick in at the end of the year. Caleb Anson has just signed a new 5-year deal. Gavin Wallace has signed a 5-year deal to 2035. Ryan Smith has signed a deal. Rashid Mohammed has signed a new deal on £27,000. Gallagher signed a new deal. Yeah, this is going to see our wage spend go up. But you know what? We're getting some of our best players here locked down for the long term, including McHugh, arguably our best young player. He signed a 5-year deal with an optional 3-year extension for less than £15,000 a week. Down the line, that contract is going to look like a steal. I'll be honest, if I have a concern right now, the first team's a little on the larger side. 30 players currently here, although in the case of Matthew Miller, he's not here, is he? We'll move him down to the under-21s. But I do feel like as I look through all these players and kind of look at the players maybe attracting some interest, and those especially outside the first team, I've got to make a bit more of an effort to try and sell some players next episode. I will say, with all those new wages, we're currently spending almost £1 million a week on wages. We're not going to be making money like we were in previous years. And annoyingly, even if I rejig the budgets as much as possible, we are still over the wage budget. And I can't ask for more wage budget right now, annoyingly. I'm hoping maybe if I just hit continue a few times, they'll let me jig the budget again further into wage budget. I mean, we've got the transfer budget to do it. Sadly, not an option right now. So I don't know how much more we're going to be able to do in the way of signings this year. Chelsea have offered me a job interview. Todd, no thank you. Appreciate the offer though. If they'd got relegated, I might have actually considered going to Chelsea, but they didn't because they're boring in this universe. They stayed up on goal difference and I'm still annoyed about it. Jimmy J. Morgan has left the club. It is now the 1st of July. That also means that Meredith has gone back to Everton. And I am wondering, would they be as kind as to sell him to me for 24 million? No, they want nearer 40, which I can technically afford. Trying to drive a hard bargain here. I think we might be able to get him for nearer 32 million if we negotiate hard. You know what? 31.5? It is a gamble, but he did get us goals last year. Okay, some good news. Meredith is interested in a transfer, and just due to some players whose loans were expiring in the case of Meredith, and also some players that we released at the end of their contracts, we have technically got some wage budget remaining. Whether or not it's enough to satisfy Meredith's demands here, we're about to find out together. He wants to be a regular starter into important player. I'm going to offer him just regular starter. £50,000 a week we can afford. Does want a yearly wage rise. There's not many clauses in here, so I'm going to negotiate hard. He can have massive bonuses if he's the top goal scorer or gets in the team of the year. He has also already declared for England. So if he gets international caps, I'll give him a load of money for that too. Because I'm a lovely bloke, £15 million relegation release clause. I'm going to hope that allows me to lower the wages further. Let's see what he thinks of that. You know what? I think we can negotiate here, Nicky, and come to an agreement. £45,000 a week, 5-year deal. I like that a lot for this guy. He proved himself as a Premier League goal scorer for us last year on loan. We're getting him for significantly cheaper than we would have got him with obviously the optional future fee that we previously had with the loan. And his wage demands aren't that outrageous either. Oh my God, clubs in England release players. Haaland's been released. Erling Haaland is a free agent. I mean, and Phil Foden's been released as well. Have Man City got financial issues? I mean, their bank balance says £501 million. I did notice their wages were kind of crazy at the club. And I noticed that Rico Lewis was on this contract for like loads of years where he had a yearly wage rise. They've actually negotiated a new deal with him, but Erling Haaland has been released. Man City are not scary anymore. I mean, to be fair, Tomori's been released. Does he want to talk to me? Yeah, I did suspect that might be an issue. I'll tell you what, imagine if I was doing any other save game. Imagine if I'd gone to Chelsea. I could have been signing Erling Haaland on a free. I'm kind of sad about that, but at the same time, I've never seen that happen before in FM. I mean, Phil's available as well, but Phil's not going to want to talk to me, is he? I am Wanderers FC, not Man City. When I look at the players with contract status expired, sorted by world reputation, not quite as attractive as Erling Haaland, I'm afraid to say. 33-year-old Esri Konsa, not what I need. Anyway, you know what? It's the 1st of July in game right now. I feel like we've had a productive transfer special today. I'm a bit concerned it's been so productive that tomorrow I can't really match it because we might have spent most of our money. A lot of tomorrow might be about, experimenting with the team, scouting out some younger players, perhaps looking to shift on some of the older players. Have just noticed here, Lancashire's wanted by Everton, Sheldon's wanted by Southampton. There's still a world where we sell some players for some big money. Do we do that? Come back tomorrow and find out. Really hope that you guys enjoyed today's transfer special. I'd love to know your thoughts on the new Carl Flood contract. Is he worth the £80,000 a week I'm paying him? From a defensive point of view, Dorrington and Henderson, do you rate or hate them? Am I crazy to think that Mohamed or Gallagher could be surpassed by a new addition to the team? And of course, would you be signing Nicky Meredith for £31 million? I want to know your answers down in the comments below. Appreciate you guys watching today's video. We'll be back tomorrow with a bang. Until then, take things easy. It's me, Jack, and I'll see you in a bit. I'm out.